Necromunda has one planet, one Hive City government, and 7 families who actually run all of it, not influence. Run. Every noble house you've ever heard mentioned in Necromunda lore traces back to one of these 7 bloodlines, and every single one of them has spent centuries figuring out how to destroy each other without technically starting a war. Because here's the thing about Necromunda's nobility, they all signed something called the Oath Nobleis centuries ago. A binding agreement that none of the great houses will go to open war with each other, and every single one of them has spent every year since finding the exact legal, financial, and procedural ways to wreck each other without breaking that promise. So let's go through all 7, who they are, what they actually do, and why the peace between them is the most aggressive thing on this entire planet. House Helmawr, this is the Imperial House, the ruling family. Lord Helmawr's word is, technically, law on Necromunda. The Imperium granted this family authority over the planet a very long time ago, and as far as the Imperium's concerned, that's still the arrangement. Here's the part that's actually interesting. Every other great house owes Helmawr formal loyalty. On paper, he's the most powerful person on the planet. In practice, the other 6 houses spend constant effort making sure his power stays exactly that on paper. House Helmawr rules the way a CEO runs a company, where 6 other board members each control a piece of it, and none of them particularly like him. Helmawr has had children over the centuries, and this part doesn't get talked about much. Several of them have quietly been removed from succession. No public reason given. They don't die, they just stop being mentioned. One sentence in a record somewhere, and that's it for an entire bloodline's future. House Catallus 2,000 years ago. House Catallus was the second most powerful family on the planet. Then, they had a civil war so brutal that even Catallus historians can't agree on what actually started it. The losing side got exiled into the Ash Wastes. They're still out there. They became the Nomads, the convoy runners who survive in the wasteland, hated and hunted by the house they used to belong to. The winning side stayed in the Spire, and every single member of House Catallus wears a porcelain mask, all the time. Same blank expression on every face, so you genuinely cannot tell who you're talking to, or whether it's the same person you negotiated with yesterday. Officially, Catallus are the diplomats, the brokers who make deals happen between houses that hate each other too much to talk directly. That part's true. Unofficially, nobody outside the house knows how many of them there are, or how their hierarchy works. You could do business with House Catallus for 30 years and never identify a single member without the mask. And every year, young Catallus nobles get sent into the Ash Wastes to hunt the Nomads, their own exiled bloodline, hunting their own relatives over a war from 2,000 years ago that nobody currently alive actually remembers the cause of. If you were born into that house, given the mask at 16, told this is who your family is now, would you wear it? Knowing the people you're sent to hunt share your blood, exiled for a war you had nothing to do with. House Tai, youngest of the great houses. The other 6 have had centuries, some of them millennia, to build their position. Tai's had to do it fast, and they did it by collecting Psykers. More than any other house on the planet. Astropaths, message carriers, people whose minds can do things that make even Spire nobles uncomfortable. House Tai trains them, houses them, and rents them out for a price to anyone who needs a message sent instantly, or information pulled out of someone's head before they know it's gone. These Psykers are almost always found young, usually from families too poor to refuse when House Tai comes asking. The families are told it's an honor, a chance the kid wouldn't otherwise get, and in a narrow sense, that's true. It's just not the part of the truth that matters to the kid who's now working permanently, while everyone who said yes on their behalf goes back to their normal life. House Tai is closely allied with House Delaque, the spy house, which makes sense once you realize what Tai actually sells. Not goods, not weapons, information, moving at the speed of thought, through people who never agreed to be the wire it travels through. House Ulanti, one of the oldest noble houses on Necromunda, one of the original families, from back when noble house was a brand new concept on this planet. That's basically Ulanti's entire identity. They were here first, and they have never once let anyone forget it. To the newer houses, especially Ulanti, is old nobility, said the exact way some people say old money. There's a specific kind of condescension that comes from a family that's watched every other houses rise in thought. We've seen this before. The actual danger of House Ulanti isn't dramatic, it's procedural. They know every old agreement, every precedent, every clause buried in deals signed centuries before anyone currently alive was born, and they will use exactly the right clause, at exactly the right moment, to make something that looked impossible suddenly, technically, legally unavoidable. Nobody enjoys negotiating against Ulanti. Not because they're cruel, because they're patient in a way that feels almost unnatural. They've never had to rush, because they've already outlasted 6 other houses worth of urgent crises, and watched every one resolve in their favor eventually. House Greim walk through the upper spire, and you'll spot House Greim before anyone else campaign medals. Ceremonial sidearms polished to a mirror shine, the bearing of soldiers. Almost none of them have actually fought in anything. Greim built its identity as the military house of Necromunda. They own a major share of the planet's weapons manufacturing, and they hold ceremonial ownership over the titles and structures used by the Necromunda militia, the same militia that supplies a huge number of recruits whenever the Imperium needs new Astra Militarum regiments. So House Greim profits directly from a system where poor people from the lower hive get conscripted into regiments whose names, banners, and traditions belong to a noble family that has never personally bled for any of it. Every year, new conscripts get told the same thing the year before's conscripts were told perform well, and you'll move up. There's a structure, a path. Nobody in House Greim has ever needed to check whether that path actually goes anywhere, because none of them have ever had to walk it. House Ranlow of the 7. Ranlow is the one most people couldn't describe if you asked directly. No mask gimmick like Catallus, no Psykers like Ty, no metals like Greim. What they have is infrastructure, atmospheric processing, water reclamation. The systems that take Necromunda's toxic outside air and turn enough of it into something breathable for billions of people every single day. It sounds boring until you sit with what it actually means. House Ranlow, quietly, without ever threatening anyone, controls whether entire sections of a hive city get to breathe. They've never needed to weaponize that. They don't have to. Every other great house knows in every negotiation, every dispute, that the air in their section of the Spire runs through a system someone else owns. Ranlow's never brought it up. It's just permanently, quietly true. House Corrin, the one house out of 7 that's been run by women for its entire history, a matriarchal line stretching back further than most other houses can even trace their own records. Officially, the explanation is faith. House Corrin has deep ties to the ecclesiarchy, the imperial church, and dominates Hive Temenos, where generations of their wealth have gone into shrines, religious sites, the physical architecture of belief itself. What nobody on Necromunda says out loud, but everyone in the Spire quietly assumes, a house that's survived this long, propped up this consistently by an institution as powerful as the ecclesiarchy, isn't running on faith alone. There's an arrangement somewhere. The kind that's written down nowhere, agreed to by nobody currently alive, and inherited like a debt nobody remembers taking out. The oath, revisited so, that's all 7. Helmawr rules on paper, while the other 6 make sure it stays on paper. Catallus brokers every deal because nobody else will speak to each other directly. Ty sells information nobody agreed to provide. Ulanti outweights everyone using rules older than the other house's bloodlines. Greim profits off a war machine they'll never personally feed into. Ranlow controls the air, and never has to say so. Warren has survived 2,000 years on an arrangement nobody admits exists. All 7 signed a promise never to go to open war with each other, and every single one of them spends every day finding new ways around that promise, legally, financially, deniably, while never technically breaking it. Billions of people live underneath these 7 families. In the underhive, the lower hive, the manufactorum levels people who will never see the Spire, never meet a noble, never hear any of these 7 names. And every gang war, every sudden shortage, every water route that changes hands overnight, in some lower hive district, there's a real chance it traces back to one of these 7 houses, moving against another. Through proxies, through trade, through somebody else's hands. The war the Oath prevents isn't the war that matters. The war that matters is the one already happening, permanently, in every direction, and the people who actually bleed from it don't even know it's a war. Somewhere in the Spire right now, someone is waiting outside a door for a decision that will define the rest of their life, a decision being made by people they'll never meet, for reasons they'll never be told. And somewhere below them, miles down, someone just finished a 12-hour shift in conditions that would kill a Spire noble in under an hour, walking home to a meal that cost most of today's wage. Neither of them will ever know the other exists. Somewhere in that gap is every promise anyone's ever been told about what hard work earns you. That's not a metaphor. That's just Tuesday on Necromunda.